everybody, and welcome to Basketball International. I'm Rick Hamlin, joined as always by Simone Sondri. And Simone, I see the hair is growing out a little bit from the buzz cut.
I guess I got to cut it again. No, I'm letting it grow. I actually don't like it too much. So.
Could you divulge the reason? I mean, we're used to you cannot believe how much time Simone spends on his hair typically before a show. Now it's just you get out of the shower, you're ready.
No, it's because I did it I promised to an Italian soccer player that if they won the World Cup, I would have cut it like his, and that's what I did.
And now you look like me, and that
like
rocks.
Exactly.
All right, well, this week Simone and I are going to bring the story of a man who holds his own special place in the history of international basketball. And he is an American who went to Israel and helped build the legend of Maccabee Tel Aviv. His name is Jim BOATWRIGHT. He will join us by phone a little bit later on in the show. But first, let's take a look back at his unique basketball journey, which began in the state of Idaho.
I grew up in a small town, Rupert, Idaho. You know, hauled hay, picked potatoes, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I mean, I wanted to be a ball player. I was consumed with being a ball player. And I got a full-ride scholarship to Utah State, close to home. At Utah State had a nice career, and then I got, you know, an agent. He said, basically, you don't have NBA skills, but there's a league that's kind of going in its embryonic state in Israel. Now, you have to understand, historically, you know, Munich had just happened in '72. The Yom Kippur War was in October. I mean, this is a hotbed of activity. Terrorism is rampant, so I'm thinking, wow. My mother said, no way. But then, I remembered reading the book Exodus, and I was fascinated with the story. And I said, I could actually live history.
In 1974, Jim moved to Israel, where he joined Maccabee Tel Aviv. And he soon found out that the team's impact went far beyond basketball. Maccabee
permeated all of society in Israel. I mean, from A to Z, the team was always involved somewhere in Israeli society.
After Jim's arrival, Maccabee began to improve, and the team's players were becoming celebrities.
As things started coming into place and started getting more and more momentum, it just got bigger and bigger. It almost got out of control where you didn't want to leave the house sometimes. You couldn't go here, you couldn't do this, you couldn't shop.
In 1977, Maccabee reached its first European Final Four. They faced Russian powerhouse CSKA Moscow in the semifinals at the height of the Cold War.
That was a huge game, pressure-packed. We played really well. We beat them by 12. It was, kind of not a rout, but it was pretty significant.
It was then that Jim's teammate Tal Brody uttered the most famous words in Israeli basketball history.
And when the game was over, that's when Tal made his famous statement, "Anachnu ala mapa," which is we're now on the map. You know who Israel is. You knew at that moment that something special had happened, and that was kind of the defining statement. And again, the springboard into kind of the new era of Maccabee.
They moved on to the championship game against Varese of Italy and future Hall of Famer Dino Medellin.
We were a massive underdog. Ignis Varese was they were like the Celtics with Burton. They had an incredible team. The only thing in the back of our minds is, should we really be on the court? Do we fit with these guys? And again, when we got on the court, all the fan base they totally believed in us.
Feeding off the energy of their supporters, Maccabee jumped out to a 9-point halftime lead.
We got out of the gates fast, our confidence rose, and then, as the game's going on, we're hanging on, they're coming back, chipping away at us. It's like people looking at the clock, they're grabbing like this. Some people got their, it's like, I want to believe, I hope we're going to win, but this is too big. This is too big for Maccabee.
Late in the game, with Maccabee holding on to a slim lead, Jim would deliver the performance of a lifetime.
We had taken a timeout, and so I said, somebody's got to shoot it. So I had a little turnaround jumper, and it went in. And then all of a sudden, as a shooter, all of a sudden the basket gets a little bigger, and you start hitting the shots. Every time you just get almost like goosebumps, like, yes, give it to me again, I'm ready. I was in a zone. Probably had the best game under pressure circumstances of my life. I scored 10 of the last 12 points. In Israel, it's a victory for the country and the city politically, economically, athletically, internationally. We got back to Israel in Habima, the big square. 500,000 people or so are there. All the hoopla.
Now, almost 3 decades later, Jim is far removed from the spotlight of Israeli basketball. he lives a peaceful life back in his home state of Idaho.
If you're an athlete of any kind, at the professional level, with all the adulation, the applause, when that dies out, and it's gone, you have to make a lot of transitions, and I had to. I went through a lot of things like, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? And then all of a sudden, the job opened up here, so I come back again, like the circle complete. Who would have thought, that right now we're sitting here in the exact spot that I was, 30-some years ago. One more section of the Cold
He's
War.
found his life after basketball, teaching history at Wood River High School.
And the Cold War is going to be a war that's not going to be fought so much with tanks and guns. It's going to be a war fought with words. Teaching has been a great avenue for me to come back down to earth, and be involved with kids, be involved in a school district and a community. Rachel, come here. Kenny, how you been? Last day, huh? You did a good job this year.
Thank you.
You really did.
Jim does stay involved with the game he loves as the assistant coach of the school basketball team.
No, when you come in, you get the hands up. You get them down here, it's going to be too quick. Okay? Got to get them up. Anticipate the pass. You have to wear so many hats as a coach and a teacher. You're a disciplinarian, you're a friend, you're a counselor, you're a psychiatrist, you're a technical coach to them. There's so many things you do. For a strong side, sit over here. Brian, you the lonely forward? Right there. You're right there. Stay there, Eric. We're in a strong side. So we got a stack here. Okay? Got a stack here.
But as much as he enjoys coaching at Wood River, he's had to make some adjustments from his days as a player for the legendary Maccabee Tel Aviv.
Wolverines! You can't be as driven, here as you were when you played. So you've got to just step back, take the deep breath, put it in perspective. These are good kids. We're not winning, but maybe we're learning a few of life's lessons, and take it from there.
Today, Jim Boatwright has settled into his quiet and rewarding life in Haley, Idaho. But he'll always have fond memories of his 7.5 years he spent in Israel, especially that 1977 championship team.
I didn't go back to Israel for 14 years. Finally, after 14 years, they had a kind of a celebration of 77. So I decided to go back. And I stepped off the plane, I had a hat on, sunglasses, and all of a sudden, the luggage guy says, wait a second, and to his friend, he says, that's Jim Boatwright. No, it's not, you're crazy, 14. Within 5 minutes, I had probably 300 people screaming, Jimbo, 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 after 14 years. So it was something special. The country realized that they're constantly, when you're back there, they constantly tell you about it. I was at this spot when this happened, I was doing this, I was doing this. It's not Maccabee's team, it's not Tel Aviv's team, it's Israel's team.
And that is a great job right there by producer Larry Berger and also editor Brian Stewart putting that together. And what a story about Jim Boatwright and that 1977 Maccabee squad that began the franchise's rise to international prominence. They won the title again in 1981 and have gone on to become one of the world's most prestigious teams with EuroLeague titles in 2 of the past 3 years. And we will talk with that man who started it all or helped to start it all, Jim Boatwright, when we come back.
Mr. Boatwright.
Yes.
Hey, this is Simone and Rick. Can I call you Jim, right?
Yeah, Jim's fine. Hi, Simone. How you doing?
Okay, great. How you doing? This is Rick.
Jim, Rick Campbell, how are you?
Hi, good, Rick. Thanks a lot. How you doing?
I couldn't be better. Thanks for asking. That is a hell of a story, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It sounded good. I mean, I tell you what, Larry and the film crew, and it sounded like Brian, who did the editing, did a great job.
Yeah, they did. It was one of the greatest stories we've seen on the show, actually. We'll be with you like in 20 seconds, okay?
Okay.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Welcome back to Basketball International. It has now been nearly 30 years since Jim Boatwright helped Maccabee Tel Aviv to its landmark victory in the European Championship. But as we saw earlier, the memories remain fresh in his mind, and he joins us right now via phone to share more of his reflections. Jim, it's a pleasure to have you on. Welcome to Basketball International.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Simone. I appreciate it. I want to say thank you to NBA Productions and Larry Berger for coming out and doing the feature. It was a lot of fun, and I'm very appreciative, to be able to kind of, after all these years, again, to reflect on it. I mean, it's something very special.
Well, it's a special story, and this is, Simone said off the air, I mean, that's one of the best things we've ever done, that 7-minute piece covering you and your story. And it is absolutely amazing. You played college basketball at Utah State, then went over to Israel at a time when people weren't necessarily making the jump. That was not a regular thing to go overseas and continue your career with the game of basketball. Talk about the decision. You said that your mom told you not to go, but did you have anybody saying, yeah, Jim, this is a good idea, go over there?
Well, I actually had my inner voice. I always, about the 7th or 8th grade, it's something in my heart, and I just had a desire to go on and try to, try to play at that level. So the voice inside of me said, and you're young too, I mean, it's an adventure. And when the opportunity arose, and they said, well, you're going to play somewhere in Europe. We don't know exactly where. And when they said Tel Aviv or Israel, I just jumped at it. I thought, wow, this is you want an adventure. This is probably the best of all.
Jim, one of the great things that we saw from that footage was, I think, the enthusiasm of the fans, the Maccabee fans, both in Belgrade, the site of the final, also in Belgium, the site of the semifinal. And Rick and I, we've seen the past 3 years the great Maccabee fans. They travel so well. They travel so well in Prague. They travel so well in Moscow. But I guess it all started then. I mean, Maccabee fans really travel well as well in the 70s as well.
Oh, it's incredible. They're, and again, it's not just a game. It's an entire event. The first game in Belgrade, we heard that there were some ladies from Haifa, and I'm not sure if you showed this piece, but they had sold, I think, something like half of their herd of cows to use it as airplane money just to go over and support us for the game. And when we heard that, it was, it kind of brought it in perspective that, again, it's more than it's more than a game, it's an event. And then the fans were, absolutely diehard fans. When you go to Yadaliao and abroad, it is incredible, the atmosphere. And that's the one thing also I remember, when you can still hear that arena rock, and it was pretty fun.
Well, Jim, thank goodness you won. Otherwise, the sold cows, that would have gone down as a horrible story in their eyes. But the fans are crazy, and they're crazy about you, Jim. I heard a story where you're swimming in a pool with your family, and you have kids coming up to you wanting autographs. Talk about what we're actually going to hear from you about that, and then we'll come back and hear more from Jim BOATWRIGHT.
Swimming pool, and I'd be swimming, and all of a sudden I'd see 15 kids swimming towards me with a pencil and paper in their mouth, dog paddling, wanting an autograph. And their parents are over there saying, get it, swim faster, be the first one there. So it's like, whoa. But Maccabee permeated all of society in Israel.
So that's a pretty unbelievable story right there, and it just goes to show what a celebrity you are over there in Israel. And if you went there right now today, you got off a plane, would people be recognizing you the second you got off that plane, Jim?
I think they would. I'd like to believe they would. I know a lot of things over there have changed, under the current situation, which is very very sad. I know they have a lot on their mind, but I'll tell you, the Israelis love winners. You look at the history of Israel. From even pre-1948 to the wars, 56, 67, Yom Kippur. They love winners. And if you do win, like we did in 77, and when we beat the Russians, which is, the big nemesis we had, they don't ever forget it. Again, you could walk along the street and a car would just, the driver would get out in the middle of the street and come over and shake your hand and thank you. That happened like all the time with Lou Silver and I when we went back, and it's not only like doctors and lawyers. It was like, people at every strata was, it was just our, their team.
Jim, you're now a history teacher, but you actually live history, and you actually made history for Maccabee with that unbelievable 77 win against that great Varese team, captained by the great Dino Medellin, the Hall of Famer. But let me ask you, how close are you even now with the teammates from that incredible win with Tal Broad, with all the other teammates? Did you develop like a real strong bond because of that game, because of that incredible victory?
We had, at the time, before the game, we were... we were a friendly team. We liked each other. After that, we hung out a lot more. Since then, we've I've gone my separate way. I know some are still living in Israel, and I stayed in touch with Tal Brody, who is, really a class. He's a gentleman of gentlemen, I think, and I've stayed in touch with him a little. But for the most part, I've it's hard to, when you decide to retire, and I retired a little bit earlier in my career. Instead of thinking about it, did I do right? Did I do wrong? What I did was just kind of block it off, separate it, and then just kind of go on with my life. And actually, with this documentary you did, it brought back a lot of memories since it's been shot. I've had a lot of thoughts that I haven't thought for a long time about those years. So I'm kind of went off on my own path a little bit, but I still think about them, and I know that even today we're still friends, and all of my teammates are great guys. I look back and they're an incredible group of young men that at that time. We had a lot of adversity, but, we had our success.
You sure did. And, Jim, we've really enjoyed having you here on Basketball International to relive your unbelievable story. And, you know, as a guy who's kind of late to this thing, you hear about Maccabee Tel Aviv. Yeah, they've won titles recently, but it's great to get to know the history, and you were obviously a big part of that. And we appreciate your time. Thanks,
Rick. Thanks, Simone. I really appreciate it, too. It's, like I say, it's good for me. It's good from, like I told Larry Berger when he came, I said, you know, Larry, I used to be a who's who, and I went from a who's who to a who's he to a who cares. So I appreciate right now that you guys care and giving me the time to tell the story.
Well, it is our pleasure. Jim, best of luck.
Okay, take care, guys. See ya.
All right, Jim BOATWRIGHT, MVP of the 1977 European Championship. Absolutely unbelievable stuff right there. Simone and I are back with more in just a moment.